Ancient human warship joins the battle, ending the Galactic War in hours. The stars looked like distant fireflies from the viewport of Commander Tejo's ship as it approached the blue-green planet. Earth, the legendary homeworld of humans. After, 5 brutal years of war, Tejo never imagined he'd be here begging for help. "Are you nervous?" asked his second-in-command, Officer Dae-sung, antennae twitching slightly. Tejo's compound eyes reflected the growing image of Earth. "Wouldn't you be?" The fate of 17 worlds rests on this meeting. Their ship, the Concordate's finest diplomatic vessel, seemed small and fragile as it entered Earth's atmosphere. 5 years of fighting the Void Dominion had reduced the once proud Galactic Concordate to a desperate alliance on the brink of collapse. Last month they'd lost the Rigel system. Before that, Vega Prime and its 4 billion inhabitants. The Dominion's black ships kept coming, kept consuming. The landing was smooth, at least. That was something. A small delegation waited for them. On the landing pad, humans dressed in simple gray uniforms without weapons or visible technology. Their leader, a woman with silver-streaked black hair, stepped forward. "I am Director Soo-jin of Earth Defense. We received your transmission. You're either very brave or very desperate to come here." Tejo bowed in the formal style of his people. "Both, Director. I am Commander Tejo of the Galactic Concordate." The human facility they were led through was surprisingly modest. No grand architecture or displays of power that most galactic civilizations favored. Just functional hallways and rooms carved into mountain stone. Tejo had expected more from the species that had once made the Artaxian Empire surrender unconditionally in a single day. In a simple meeting room with a window overlooking snowy mountains, Director Soo-jin offered them water and listened silently as Tejo outlined the Concordate's dire situation. "The Void Dominion has conquered 34 systems. We've lost 60% of our fleet. Their technology outmatches ours at every turn. Intelligence suggests they'll reach the core worlds within 3 months." Soo-jin's face remained expressionless. "And now you remember Earth exists." Dae-sung shifted uncomfortably beside Tejo. They both knew the history. 300 years ago, humans had been active members of the galactic community until some kind of internal conflict caused them to withdraw completely. The details were murky. Some said civil war. Others claimed they'd discovered something terrible out in the dark between galaxies. "We should have come sooner," Tejo admitted. "Pride kept us away. We thought we could handle the Dominion ourselves." "Pride?" Soo-jin nodded. "We understand something about that." An aide entered, whispering something in Soo-jin's ear. She nodded and stood. "The council will see you now." The council chamber was a half-circle of 9 humans of varying ages. They listened without interruption as Tejo showed them holographic recordings of Dominion attacks. Worlds burning, refugee ships being hunted down, the massacre at Proxima, station where 10,000 civilians had died. When he finished, an older man with deep lines around his eyes spoke. "What exactly are you asking of us?" "Military intervention," Tejo said simply. "The legends say humans once had warships that could end wars." A uncomfortable silence filled the room. "Those ships were decommissioned," said a younger woman at the end of the table. "After the incident." No one elaborated on what the incident was. Tejo felt desperation rising in his thorax. "Please, 17 civilizations face extinction. The Void Dominion doesn't occupy worlds, they harvest them. Nothing remains." The council members exchanged glances, having some silent communication that Tejo couldn't read on their alien faces. Finally, Soo-jin spoke. "Show them." 2 hours later, Tejo stood in a control room facing an enormous viewscreen. The image showed what appeared to be an ordinary asteroid field at the edge of the solar system. "I don't understand," Dae-sung whispered, a young human. Officer Jun-ho worked at a control panel. "Watch carefully." He entered a series of commands. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the largest asteroid began to change. Sections of rock fell away, revealing metal beneath. Lights began to activate along what was clearly an artificial structure. Not an asteroid at all, but a vessel of impossible size, disguised as a celestial body. The HWS Leviathan, Junho said with something like reverence. 12 kilometers long, the last of the planet killers. Taeho's mandibles clicked in shock. That's a warship? No, Director Sujin corrected. That's the warship. The reason humans withdrew from galactic politics. The reason we chose isolation. On screen, more of the rocky camouflage fell away. The ship was black as space itself, angular and predatory with strange protrusions that seemed to bend light around them. After we built it, we realized what we'd become, Junho explained. A species that could end civilizations with a single ship. We chose to step back from that precipice. Daesung's antennae trembled. Can it defeat the Dominion? Director Sujin's face was grim. It can eliminate them, there's a difference. Will you help us? Taeho asked, hope and fear mingling in his voice. Sujin looked at the massive ship coming to life on the screen. The Council has voted. We'll send the Leviathan, but we need someone who can command it. Who? Taeho asked. Captain Hae-sun, Junho replied. The last living descendant of the original crew. She's been living in the mountains for years, wanting nothing to do with her family's legacy. Director Sujin turned to face Taeho, her expression solemn. Your job, Commander, is to convince her that the galaxy needs the very weapon she spent her life running from. Taeho looked back at the screen where the ancient human warship continued to awaken, its systems lighting up one by one like a predator opening its eyes after a long sleep. And if I can't convince her? Then, Sujin said quietly, the Concordat falls, and after that eventually so will Earth. The journey to find Captain Hae-sun took Commander Taeho and Director Sujin 3 days. Their shuttle flew over endless stretches of mountains, forests, and lakes untouched by civilization. Earth was nothing like the crowded, technology-packed planets of the Concordat. Here, nature still ruled. I don't understand, Taeho said, looking out at the wilderness below. Your species built the most powerful warship in galactic history, but you choose to live like this? Sujin's eyes remained fixed on the horizon. Perhaps because we built that warship, we choose to live like this. They landed in a clearing near a lake. A small wooden house stood at the water's edge, smoke rising from its chimney. It looked ancient and thoroughly non-technological, like something from a historical archive. Are you sure this is right? Taeho asked, his alien legs unsteady on the soft earth. This is where she lives, Sujin confirmed. The woman who stepped onto the porch didn't look like someone who could command a planet killer. She was neither tall nor physically imposing, with gray-streaked black hair pulled back simply. She wore practical clothes meant for life in the wilderness. Only her eyes gave any hint of her heritage. Sharp, calculating, missing nothing. I told you never to come here, Sujin, she called out. The situation has changed, Captain. I'm not a captain, not anymore. She noticed Taeho then, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of the insectoid commander. You brought an alien to my home? The Concordat needs our help, Sujin said. The Concordat abandoned us when we needed allies, Hae-sun replied sharply. Let them solve their own problems. Taeho stepped forward. Captain Hae-sun, I am Commander Taeho of the Qatari Defense Force. 17 civilizations face extinction. I wouldn't be here if there was any other option. She studied him for a long moment. Come inside. I won't have this conversation in the open air. The inside of the cabin was warm and simple. Wooden furniture, books made of actual paper, a fire crackling in a stone hearth. No screens, no holographics, no technology visible anywhere. You want to wake the Leviathan? Hae-sun said, not bothering, with pleasantries as she poured tea into 3 mismatched cups. Yes, Sujin confirmed. Impossible. The Council would never allow it. They've already voted. It's happening with or without you. Hae-sun's cup paused halfway to her lips. Fools. They don't understand what they're unleashing. The Void Dominion has conquered 34 systems, Taeho interjected. They don't occupy worlds. They strip them bare of all resources, including living beings. Trillions have already died. And you think one ship can stop them? Hae-sun asked. I think the ship you once commanded can. Her eyes narrowed. I never commanded the Leviathan, no one has. It was completed, tested, and then immediately decommissioned. The test results were concerning enough that we chose isolation rather than risk becoming conquerors ourselves. Sujin placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram showing the Void Dominion's advance through the galaxy. A creeping darkness consuming everything in its path. At current rates, they'll reach Earth in approximately 1 year, Sujin said. We can run, but there's nowhere in this galaxy to hide. Hae-sun watched the projection silently, her weathered hands wrapped around her teacup. My grandmother was the Leviathan's designated captain, she finally said. She never took command, but she told me stories about what the ship could do, about why it was buried. We need those capabilities now, Sujin insisted. Hae-sun stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful lake. Do you know why I live here away from everything? Because my family carries the genetic key to activate the Leviathan's primary systems. Not just anyone can command it. That burden falls to me whether I want it or not. Taeho's antennae quivered with hope. Then you can help us? If I do this, Hae-sun said, turning back to face them. There's no going back. Not for me, not for humanity, not for the galaxy. There's no going back anyway, Sujin countered. Not with the Dominion coming. 3 days later, they stood in the control center of Midnight Vault, the hidden facility built into the massive asteroid that had concealed the Leviathan for centuries. Technicians worked feverishly to complete the reactivation sequence. Power systems at 60% and rising, called out a young officer named Gi-hun, weapons still in standby mode. Hae-sun had transformed since agreeing to help. Gone was the reclusive woman from the woods. Here stood a commander, back straight, eyes alert, voice carrying natural authority as she directed the awakening of the ancient warship. Initiate Athena protocol, she ordered. A shimmering blue light appeared in the center of the command deck, coalescing into the form of a woman composed entirely of light. Athena Artificial Intelligence Online, the figure announced. Identity. Confirmation required. Hae-sun stepped forward. Captain Hae-sun Park, direct descendant of Captain Micha Park. Authorization code, Phoenix Ascendant. The AI's eyes seemed to look through Hae-sun, scanning her on levels beyond the visible. Genetic signature confirmed. Welcome, Captain Park. The Leviathan awaits your command. Taeho watched in awe as systems throughout the massive ship came online. Corridors lit up that had been dark for centuries. Weapons platforms awakened, humming, with dormant power. Show me the full capabilities, Hae-sun demanded of the AI. That information is classified beyond your current authorization, Athena replied. Hae-sun's jaw tightened. Override, Family Protocol 7. The AI paused, then nodded. Override accepted. Displaying full capabilities. The holographic displays around them changed, revealing weapon systems that defied Taeho's understanding. Reality distortion fields, temporal displacement cannons, dimensional cascade generators. This wasn't just a warship. It was a weapon that could break the laws of physics themselves. By the first nest, Taeho whispered, mandibles clicking in shock. What have your people created? Hae-sun's face was grim as she studied the displays, something we hoped never to use. She turned to face the command crew, all waiting expectantly. Prepare for departure. The Leviathan goes to war. As they walked toward the bridge, Taeho found himself wondering if they had made the right choice. The Dominion was destroying worlds, yes, but what destruction might this human vessel unleash? He caught up to Hae-sun in a corridor. Captain, can you control it? Truly? She paused, looking at him with eyes that suddenly seemed ancient and tired. Let's hope so, Commander. Because if I can't, we might save the galaxy from the Dominion only to face something worse. What could be worse than the Dominion? Us, she said simply. Humans with the power to unmake reality itself. The Leviathan dropped out of fold space with the silence of a predator. No energy flare, no displacement wave, just sudden presence where before there had been empty void. On the command deck, Captain Haesun stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the tactical display with eyes that betrayed no emotion. "Status report," she ordered. "We've arrived at Proxima Centauri," Officer Gi-hun announced. "Local. Time is 0423 hours. The Concordat fleet is engaged with Dominion forces." Commander Taeho moved to stand beside her. After their journey through deep space, he'd come to respect the human captain's calm precision, but even his alien face couldn't hide his shock at what they were seeing. The Concordat's last defense fleet, barely 300 ships, fought desperately against a void Dominion armada that blackened space itself. Thousands upon thousands of Dominion vessels, like dark stars against the backdrop of Proxima Centauri's red glow. "There must be over 10,000 enemy ships," Taeho whispered, antennae drooping in dismay. 10,437, corrected Athena's cool voice. "They are currently unaware of our presence." A Concordat cruiser exploded on screen, its blue emergency lights flickering out as vacuum claimed its crew. Another followed. Seconds later, the Concordat was being systematically slaughtered. "They won't last another hour," said Director Soo-jin, who had insisted on joining the mission despite Haesun's objections. Haesun's expression didn't change. "Open a channel to the Dominion command ship." Gi-hun looked up in surprise. "Captain? Do it." The main display flickered, then revealed the bridge of the Dominion flagship. The being that stared back at them wasn't what anyone had expected. Not a grotesque alien, but something almost beautiful in its crystalline symmetry. Multiple faceted eyes regarded them with cold intelligence. "Identify yourselves," it demanded in a voice like grinding glass. Haesun stepped forward. "This is Captain Haesun Park of the human warship Leviathan. You are engaged in illegal military action against recognized civilian populations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." A sound like cracking ice might have been laughter. "One ship? Your arrogance exceeds even the legends, human. We are the Void Dominion. We have consumed 34 systems. We will consume this one, and then yours." "This is your only warning," Haesun replied evenly. "Withdraw." The Dominion commander's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps we will keep your ship intact when we harvest your world. A trophy to human hubris." The connection cut. Haesun turned to her crew. "They've made their choice. Athena, deploy Phase 1 countermeasures." Taeho watched in fascination as small hatches opened along the Leviathan's hull, releasing what looked like thousands of metallic seed pods into space. "Autonomous combat drones," Gi-hun explained, noticing his interest. "They're about to—" Before he could finish, the drones activated, each one flaring with blue energy as they accelerated toward the Dominion fleet. They moved not in straight lines but in impossible curves, as if they bent space around themselves. The Dominion responded immediately, redirecting weapons fire toward this new threat. But the drones were too fast, too small, and seemingly able to phase in and out of normal space at will. They reached the first line of Dominion destroyers and attached themselves to the hulls. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then explosions bloomed across space as the drones detonated not conventional warheads but something far more devastating. "Localized reality inversion," Soo-jin murmured. "I've only read about this in theoretical papers. Where the drones struck, Dominion ships didn't merely explode, they collapsed inward, as if reality itself rejected their existence. Hundreds of vessels vanished in seconds. "The enemy is responding," Athena announced. "They're reorganizing to target us directly." Indeed, the vast Dominion fleet was turning with surprising speed, thousands of weapons ports opening like hungry mouths. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers," Haesun observed. "Athena, deploy the temporal field." "Temporal field active," the AI confirmed. Outside, space rippled visibly around the Leviathan. When the first wave of Dominion fire reached them enough energy to shatter a small moon, it simply slowed. Beams of destructive force crawled through space at a fraction of their normal speed, giving the Leviathan plenty of time to maneuver clear. Impossible, Teho breathed. Time dilation field, Heisun explained. We're experiencing time at a different rate than they are. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their command vessels with the Kronos Lance, full dispersion pattern. Captain, Gihun said hesitantly, the Kronos Lance has never been used outside of simulations. The power requirements alone will— Do it, she interrupted. Her voice remained level, but there was steel beneath the calm. The deck hummed beneath their feet as power redirected throughout the massive ship. Something was changing in the very air of the command center, a heaviness as if gravity itself was being manipulated. Kronos Lance charging, Athena announced. Firing solution calculated. On the tactical display, targeting markers appeared. Over 27 Dominion command ships scattered throughout their formation. But they're not even in the same sector, Teho objected. How can you target ships on opposite sides of the battlefield simultaneously? Heisun's answer was simple. The Lance doesn't care about conventional space. Kronos Lance at full charge, Athena reported. Heisun took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. The weapon that had caused humanity to lock away the Leviathan and withdraw from galactic affairs. Fire, she commanded. There was no beam of light, no visible projectile. Instead, for one terrible moment, the stars themselves seemed to blink. Then, across the battlefield, the targeted Dominion command ships simply ceased to be. Not explosions. Not implosions like the drones had caused, just absence where mighty vessels had been an instant before. In the stunned silence that followed, Athena's voice was almost gentle. 27 targets eliminated, calculating time displacement effect. The remaining Dominion fleet fell into chaos. Without their command ships, coordination collapsed. Some vessels crashed into each other, others fired randomly into space. They're still dangerous, Sujin warned. Their numbers are irrelevant, Heisun finished. Athena, deploy the Cascade Matrix. What happened next defied description. The space between the Leviathan and the Dominion fleet seemed to fold, creating impossible geometries. Dominion ships found themselves suddenly occupying the same space, their matter combining with catastrophic results. Others vanished into what looked like tiny tears in the fabric of reality. In 20 minutes, half the Dominion fleet was gone. In 40 minutes, only scattered remnants remained. In 53 minutes, the last Dominion vessel either fled or was destroyed. The Battle of Proxima Centauri, which military strategists had expected to be the final defeat of the Concordat, had instead become the single most one-sided victory in galactic history. On the command deck of the Leviathan, Commander Teho stared at the tactical display in silence. His people had fought the Dominion for 5 brutal years. Billions had died. Worlds had burned. And a single human warship had ended it in less than an hour. Captain, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. What exactly is the Leviathan? Heisun turned to face him, and for the first time he saw weariness in her eyes. A mistake, she said quietly. One we hoped never to repeat. The observation deck of the Leviathan offered a sweeping view of Proxima Centauri's crimson light, washing over the assembled Concordat fleet. Ships from all 17 member species had gathered around the human warship, like small fish sheltering near a benevolent whale. The debris of the Dominion fleet had been cleared away, though occasional glimmers of wreckage still caught the starlight. Commander Teho found Captain Heisun standing alone at the viewport, hands clasped behind her. In the 3 days since the battle, she had become a legend throughout the Concordat. The woman who ended a 5-year war in under an hour. The human who commanded the most powerful weapon in known space. May I join you, Captain? Teho asked. She nodded without turning from the view. The representatives will arrive soon. Are you ready for this? For a peace ceremony? After 5 years of war, I welcome it. Teho's antennae twitched slightly, though I admit I don't know what comes after. Neither do I, Heisun admitted. Humanity has been isolated for so long. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, The past week had forged an unlikely friendship between them, the insectoid commander and the human captain. "Do you regret it?" Taeho asked. "Coming out of retirement?" Hae-sun considered the question. "I regret that it was necessary, but no. I don't regret saving billions of lives." Director Soo-jin approached, her uniform immaculate for the coming ceremony. "It's time," she said. "The Grand Hall is prepared." The Grand Hall wasn't actually designed for diplomatic functions. Like everything else on the Leviathan, it had been built for war. A massive briefing chamber where hundreds of officers could receive orders simultaneously. Now it had been transformed with simple decorations representing all 17 concordate species. At the center stood a long table of polished stone, a peace treaty waiting on its surface. As the leaders of the concordate races filed in, Taeho watched their expressions: awe, fear, gratitude, suspicion. The rumors of what the Leviathan had done at Proxima Centauri had spread faster than light itself through subspace communications. The stories grew with each telling. How a single human ship had bent time and space to destroy the unstoppable Dominion. High Chancellor Yoon-hee of the Concordate stepped forward. Unlike most of the delegates who wore elaborate ceremonial dress, she was clad in a simple white robe, her silver hair pulled back severely. "For 5 years," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "We have fought against extinction. For 5 years we have watched worlds burn. And when our darkest hour came, salvation appeared from an unexpected source, murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid," she continued. "Today we sign not just a peace treaty marking the end of the war with the Dominion, but a new alliance welcoming humanity back into galactic affairs." Captain Hae-sun stepped forward, and Taeho noticed something had changed in her bearing. The weariness he'd seen after the battle was gone, replaced by firm resolve. "Before we proceed," Hae-sun said, "there's something you all need to understand. About the Dominion." She nodded to Officer Gi-hun, who activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed strange crystalline structures, similar to the Dominion commander they'd seen, but somehow more primitive. "These are not the Dominion's true form," Hae-sun explained. "They're vessels, artificial bodies created to house something much older and more dangerous." The hologram shifted, showing what looked like living shadow, a darkness with awareness that seemed to drink in the light around it. "We call them the Void-born. 700 years ago, they attacked Earth. We built the Leviathan and ships like it to fight them. We won, barely, but the cost was too high." Her eyes swept across the assembled delegates. "We didn't withdraw from galactic affairs out of weakness or arrogance. We did it because we knew they would return, and we needed to prepare without causing panic." Stunned silence fell over the hall. "The Dominion was just the beginning," Soo-jin added. "The Void-born were using them to clear a path, weakening this sector of the galaxy before their main force arrives." Chancellor Yoon-hee stepped forward. "If what you're saying is true, then the war isn't over." "No," Hae-sun agreed. "It's just beginning. But this time, we face it together." The chamber erupted in voices. Questions, objections, expressions of disbelief. Through it all, Taeho watched Hae-sun, seeing not fear but certainty in her eyes. When the noise subsided, an elderly delegate from the avian crest world spoke up. "If these Void-born are so terrible, why should we believe humans can defeat them? Perhaps the Leviathan's victory was merely luck." Hae-sun exchanged glances with Soo-jin, who nodded slightly. "The Leviathan isn't our greatest weapon," Hae-sun said quietly. "It's one of our oldest ships, kept as a deterrent and reminder. When humanity withdrew from galactic affairs, we devoted all our resources to defense." She activated another hologram, this one showing Earth's solar system. As they watched, massive structures appeared around several planets and moons, orbital platforms, shipyards, defense grids. "We have a fleet of 300 ships more advanced than the Leviathan," she continued, "and technologies we've developed that make the Kronos lance seem primitive. We've been preparing for 7 centuries." The delegates stared in stunned silence. "You've hidden all this?" Chancellor Yun He asked, her voice a mixture of awe and accusation. We had to, Sujin replied. The Voidborn can sense certain technologies. If we had deployed our full strength openly, they would have attacked before we were ready. Taeho felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. How long do we have? Based on our calculations, Hae-sun said, less than 1 standard year before their main force arrives. The peace ceremony transformed into a war council. For hours, the leaders of the concordant races discussed strategy, resources, evacuation plans. Through it all, Taeho watched the humans, not just Hae-sun and Sujin, but the entire Leviathan crew. They showed no panic, no fear, just the calm determination of people who had lived their entire lives preparing for this moment. As the meeting concluded, Commander Taeho found himself standing once again with Captain Hae-sun at the observation deck viewport. My people believed humans retreated from galactic society out of arrogance or fear, he said. We were wrong on both counts. Hae-sun smiled slightly. We have our share of both arrogance and fear, but we also have hope. She turned to face him, fully. The Voidborn feed on division. They've spent centuries trying to keep galactic civilizations separated, suspicious of each other. The Dominion was just their latest tool. And now? Now we stand together, she said. 17 civilizations, plus humanity. Different histories, different biologies, different beliefs, but united. Outside the viewport, ships from across the Concordat were taking up formation around the Leviathan, preparing to jump back to Earth where humanity would share its long-hidden technologies and strategies. Do you think we can win? Taeho asked. I don't know, Hae-sun admitted, but I know we won't face them alone anymore, and sometimes, Commander, that makes all the difference. As if on cue, the fleet jumped to lightspeed in perfect synchronization, a united force heading toward an uncertain future, but facing it together. In his 5 years of fighting the Dominion, Commander Taeho had nearly forgotten what hope felt like. Standing beside the human captain, watching stars streak past as they traveled to Earth, he felt it stirring again, not because of the Leviathan's awesome power or humanity's hidden fleet, but because of what those things represented. The refusal to surrender to darkness, no matter the odds. The war was far from over, but for the first time in years, the galaxy had reason to believe it could be won.